2016, we celebrate America's national parks. We celebrate the caretakers of these special places, especially the maintenance folks who work hard every single day. Forrest Howard, we celebrate you. You were a member of the Cumberland Gap family. We will always see you up at the Pinnacle Overlook. We will always see your smile. Thank you, Forrest. Escaped, and nobody even knows that I'm up here at Hensley Settlement. No phones, no computers, no cars, no music. I love it. Oh yeah, there is music. Listen to those cicadas, the cedar waxwings flying overhead calling. I am at Hensley Settlement. It is great. It is quiet. It is what I need. What are you doing? I came up here for peace and quiet.
We have to work up here also.
That means it's going to be another exciting segment of Wild Outdoor Adventures with Ranger Carol and the noisy ones. So, I'm here at Hensley Settlement with Gary Daniels, one of the Cougar Maintenance Strong. And Gary, I have to admit that right now I'm like trying to refrain from belting out a riveting tune of Almost Heaven, Hensley Settlement versus West Virginia. Right. But again, this is such an incredible place. You are one of the folks who helps to ensure that this place remains incredible.
Right. You have to have pride in what you do up here because it's hard work, and like you said, a lot of people don't see what you've done, and that's one of the things. The crew that we've had this year, everyone has had that passion of wanting to see it brought back up, and they're really proud of what they do up here.
And we're going to see some of those folks later on. But when we start talking at Hensley Settlement, we're in front of one of the beautiful cabins here. But we have the fences and how many buildings altogether?
I'm not exactly sure how many buildings there are.
But we have
20,
cabins,
24.
we have corn cribs,
yes,
we have the barns, we have miles and miles of fencing. Oh man, and look over there, a deer is watching us also. Now that is cool. This really is heaven right here. Wow.
It is.
We have the apple orchard. Even the apple orchard requires maintenance.
It does. There's a lot of work goes into everything up here. From fences to mowing to the cabins to all the way down to the chicken coops and hog pens, and there's a lot of work that goes into this place no one ever sees.
Yeah, so a tremendous amount of work. I'm sure that you're going to be handing me a hammer shortly. But again, this is an incredible place, Hensley Settlement, and this is an incredible place because of the rich history, because of the families who lived here, but it's incredible because of folks like Gary Daniels, incredible Cougar Strong.
Thanks. So here's one of the things people don't really realize is these cabins, they sit on these stone foundations, and over time they get water in them, logs rot out. We have a couple logs in this cabin that need to be replaced. These were originally chestnut. Of course, there's no chestnut anymore. What isn't big enough to use. So working with HPTC, Historic Preservation Training Center, we've worked with them to come up with, we can replace these logs with poplar. They have to be treated, of course, but it's their recommended replacement for these logs. There's, like I said, 3 or 4 in this wall has to be replaced, and these will probably take us 2 to 3 guys on this crew. We'll probably work on these logs for at least a couple weeks.
All right.
You don't realize how long it takes to jack this building up. You got to take the chinking out, extract the log, cut your slopes back on them, and get everything to line back up to go back in there. So there's a lot of work goes into just replacing a log that most people will never see when they come up here.
Right.
Because they just don't realize that log has been replaced.
Right. And this is the Bert Hensley house, and normally we would have volunteers living in here.
Right.
But again, as you just mentioned, this cabin does need a tad bit of work, and what you are doing is nothing that the Hensleys would not have done.
Right.
Because anybody who owns a house, man, you know, you have to do constant repairs for that upkeep. And like you just said, it's a lot of work, because in order to replace this, you mentioned you're going to have to jack this building up.
Right, the whole building.
Wow. Wow, that's tough. And then just quickly explain to us the chinking.
Chinking on this is cement. This is not in the historic district, so this is not, most of them will be a mud-based cement.
All right.
But this all has to be chipped out. It just fills the cracks between the logs, seal them up, keep the bugs and critters out, but as you see, it's all loose, so there's probably bugs and critters and everything else behind it when we take it out.
And one of the things too that you really have to adhere to, if on my personal house the roof is just leaking, I can go up and replace with whatever I want.
Right.
But here at Hensley Settlement, there are rules that we must follow.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules at Hensley Settlement for stuff like that. These shingles on these cabins are white oak, 36 inch. Most of these shingles are hand split. They have, some of them have been bought, but we try to keep them hand split as long as we have the maintenance crew to do it. It's a lot more work than people think to break those out. It takes a long time. For this cabin alone, it takes about 3,000 shingles to cover this thing. So that's a long time of hand busting shingles.
Wow, wow.
So,
So Gary, a few moments ago you were talking about the shingles, and here I can actually touch these, so that's why I want to talk about them. But these are white oak.
Right.
And you mentioned that on some of the cabins it takes up to 3,000 shingles.
it takes a lot, yes.
And let me ask you about this, because I've heard it so many times that folks in this area say that if those shingles are being handmade, they should be made during the full moon. Is that true?
Yeah, well, we've heard the same thing. With our crew, sometimes you have to go outside that. We've not had any trouble with them.
Right.
But if the old timers would say they should be made during a certain moon, and that would keep them from pulling and buckling. Yeah.
All right. So the other thing is too, Hensley Settlement is in a historic district. And we actually have 3 historic districts here in the park. The actual Cumberland Gap area itself, down by the Chadwell Gap Trail where we have the coke ovens, and then here, Hensley Settlement. Historic districts. That means, again, that to replace this roof, you gotta use what?
You gotta use the white oak. You gotta use what they would have used. The rule is you do it the way it was done in history. You have to keep it what they would have had here. Like I said, that's the beauty of the place. It's been kept this way for so long, so we need to keep it this way.
Yeah, and what's really cool is that the Hensleys and the Gibbons do come up. They come up every year for a gravesite visit, and as they're reminiscing, as they're sharing stories about their descendants, it's cool because they can look at these buildings and they know that we are maintaining them. And it really just helps to keep that history alive.
There's someone else here I'd like you to meet.
Yes, I love meeting new folks.
This guy really helped us out this year. He was a big asset to our team, and we really hated to see him get his time run out, but this is Alex Campbell.
All right, Alex, you're not in green and gray.
No, I'm not. I worked with the American Conservation Experience. I was the historic preservation intern. Basically, I was like the one that they just said, go do this, go do that, and they all sat back and watched me work. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Just fucking.
Well, that is very cool, and actually, Alex, we have quite a few, I'm just going to shorten it, ACE interns here at the park. But the cool thing is, the park realizes that we can't do everything on our own, and ACE, wow, talk about a godsend to the park. Alex, where are you from?
I'm from Middlesboro, so I grew up in the park. And,
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, so you go to school?
I do. I go to school in Williamsburg, Kentucky,
All
at
right.
the University of the Cumberlands.
Oh, cool. What's your major?
Biology.
Oh,
actually.
wow. So what drew you up here? And don't say that you heard about the talents of Gary.
I was looking for a good internship this summer. I'm interested in working for the Park Service.
Cool.
Yeah, and when I saw that there was an internship available at the Cumberland Gap Park right in my backyard, I wanted to do it. So.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah. And noticed how Alex just used the words national park right in your, say it loud, own backyard.
Backyard, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. To have a national park in one's backyard is an incredible gift. So then you mentioned that you were the gopher, but I know you weren't the gopher. You were doing a lot of other things here.
Yeah,
so can I just ask a question? Because my background really is natural history. So I'm leaning against this particular fence. But I even noticed that, you know, the fencing is different here throughout the settlement. So can you explain the different types of fencing? And then I also noticed that some are even different colors further down.
Yeah, so around a lot of the cabins, around the garden spots, they have these paling fences, which are more like a picket style fence. And then around the fields, you'll have these straight line, straight rail fences. Those are more just to separate the fields out, and these are more to keep things out.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right, cool.
And the different colored ones, like they've mentioned before, we can't go through and replace them all. So we'd go through and you'd just kind of shake them, and unless they pulled right off, you'd leave them. And if they pulled off, you'd go nail another one right back on and keep on going. So Carol, here's one of these odd-looking pickets that we replaced.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll just start on one end of a fence, and we'll just go through and we'll just kind of shake them. And if they stay on like that, then we leave them. And then if they come off, we'll replace them. And yeah, they look a little different, but this time next year, you won't be able to tell the difference. Like this one right here, you can see it's thicker.
Right.
It's newer, but it's weathered to where if you weren't looking, you wouldn't really know the difference.
Right. And then earlier, Gary was talking about how in the repairs of the cabins, instead of chestnut, we're having to now use poplar. So what are we using for this fencing material?
Most of the posts are going to be locust posts.
All right.
And then all of your pickets are going to be oak.
All right.
So we're going to replace these with oak pickets.
And locust is really resilient to rot.
It is.
And then oak is just a very, very sturdy wood. Yeah. And what's really cool, your tool belt here.
Yeah.
And you said you were just gophering it. I do not believe it. I believe that this is probably one you wore.
It is. Yeah, we would, if we were working on a fence, we'd bring a bunch of new pickets. We'd have a tool belt, hammer, some nails, and we'd go. You'd start, you'd pull a section off.
Yeah.
Then you just start replacing.
Ah, very cool. And did you sing If I Had a Hammer?
I did,
Hammer in the Morning? You could sing it for us now.
I'm not much of a singer, but I would sing to myself to keep myself entertained. So I'd sing the 9-pound hammer too. It's getting a little heavy.
Great job, Alex.
All right, you've had a chance to look at this area here, the cabin, the fences. Let's go up to the schoolhouse and cemetery and we'll look at some of the things we've done up there.
All right, lead the way, Gary.
Let's go.
Go ahead, Alex.
All right, now we've came to the schoolhouse. This is a very nice preserved building where you can learn a lot of stuff here. Someone over time has learned a lot in here, hopefully. And it's just, people wonder, how do we know if we're doing things the way they should be done, historically correct?
Yeah, and you know what, Gary? You have been a wealth of information, and you really know your stuff when it comes to the maintenance. But you know, one of the things we've been talking about is just everything that's required, all the knowledge. And this is where we need the historian, Martha Wiley. And you know what?
Hey, guys.
Whoa!
I heard my name.
And how'd you get here?
Just passing through.
Just passing through. You've come to heaven also.
I did. I like to get up here every once in a while. It's so peaceful up here.
It is, and you know, here at the schoolhouse, this has got to be probably my favorite building. And I think for visitors, it's one of their favorite buildings. So Martha, we're at the schoolhouse, and I think this is the time when we need to go inside. We be the students, and you give us that lesson.
Great. Okay, yeah, well, part of my job as historian is to help educate and work with other divisions when they interpret or maintain the settlement, because I think, as you said earlier, it is on the National Register of Historic Places. It is considered a historic district. It was put on there in the early 1980s, and that means we have certain standards we need to keep up. As Gary was saying, you want to try to use the same materials or similar. You want to reuse the same materials as much as possible. For example, where we're sitting in this school, when the park came in to start restoring the settlement, this place was on the ground. It was in ruins. But when the early park staff and Job Corps came in and started to restore the settlement, they used as much original material as they could. So a lot of what you're seeing was actually used when the Hensleys built this building. And so my job is to learn about the place. You know, right now we have more than 80 tapes, oral history tapes, from Hensleys and Gibbons from 1960, people who lived here. And the historian back then talked to them about, what did you do up here? How did you build your buildings? That's how Gary, for example, knows that they use a 36-inch shake. So we go back, that is like our Bible for when we go, how did they do something? Or how much fencing did they have? And we go back to them. They're the authority on it.
Now, Gary, I've been here at Come and Get for 22 years. And the only work that's really had to be done on the schoolhouse was replacing the windows and then replacing the porch where we were sitting a few moments ago. Why has this building needed such little repair maintenance to it?
This building had a real good roof put on it. That's the life of these buildings. They're logs. If you get a good roof, keep the water out of the logs, these things will last forever. As a lot of the stuff was used from what was originally here, and it's still here. It's just you have to, if you get a good roof on it, it will last. And that's what we work with Martha and try to make sure everything's done the way it needs to be done and to the best that we can do so we can preserve these buildings. Like you said, this building's had very little work done compared to some of the other buildings, and it pays off.
Yeah.
It really is.
We can, one of the things I do is I need to work with the state historic preservation officers, and of course in our park we're in 3 states, but the Kentucky SHPO, as we say, came up here last year. He had never been up here before, and Craig Potts, and he was amazed at the extent of this district. I mean, I was always asking him, can we do this, can we do that? You try to coordinate with them, and he said, I had no idea this was this large, and he was very impressed with all the work and how well Gary and his team have been doing things correctly. And then we were lucky enough to get Alex through the Cultural Resource Diversity Internship Program through the National Park Service, who had an interest already and experience in preservation, to come up and help. So that is our hope, is that as we can teach not only our staff, but interns and volunteers the correct way to, so this can keep going for generations.
Martha, you mentioned the oral histories that we have from the Hensleys and the Gibbons. Some of those oral histories are from people who actually lived here at the settlement.
That's right.
Textbooks of history, really. And what I love is a lot of times when I'm driving on a road trip, what do I listen to? Those oral histories. And to hear the words of Sherman Hensley, man, I feel like I am right there with him. Cool stuff.
It is, and you know, it's all transcribed and they're available on CDs. If any member of the public can get copies of those. But we learn so much from them. Like I said, it's what I go back to whenever there's a question about how would they have done this. And the great thing about those is that the residents did talk about how they built. In fact, Jesse Gibbons, who was one of Willie Gibbons' sons, worked with the Job Corps in the late 1960s as they were reconstructing some buildings and restoring others. He was right there on site with them, teaching and making sure things were done the way they were done back in the early part of the century.
Yeah, that's all great information. So Martha, you've just given us a great lesson. We thank you. Well, Gary, Martha, Alex, cool peppermint breeze is blowing. I love it. So, I'm not leaving this point. So since I'm not leaving this point, let's sit down for a few moments and let's just do another retake about what all of this really means. All right. Oh, I love this breeze. You know, and I think it's especially cool to recap because this is the 100th anniversary of the national park system. And when we look look at national parks for the next 100 years, Alex, buddy, old pal, you're like, oh my God. You are the youth. You are the future of the national parks. So again, we're sitting here. Tell us what this has really meant to you.
It's been a great experience. I know when I signed up to be an ACE intern, I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into. But from day one, I felt like I was part of the Park Service family. I felt right at home. And it's a great thing to get involved in. I encourage anyone looking for a summer job, looking for an internship. I know mine lasted 10 weeks, but they go from 10 weeks to 18 months. So if you're looking to get into the Park Service, I think it's a great way to get your foot in the door, see what it's all about. And in my experience, once you kind of feel that family atmosphere, you're going to want to stay in it. So I definitely encourage people, look into ACE, look into the National Park Service, and maybe 100 years from now, we can say this place is just like it is now.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And again, even with those internships, we have folks working on the trails here in the park. In April, we had our huge centennial extravaganza where the Cumberland Gap Corridor was released to the public, and we did have a ACE intern working with us on that program also. Cool experiences, youth.
That's
Come.
right. And sometimes we have interns from schools, from colleges, local colleges. I had another intern working on doing some research for me. So yeah, you can look into internships at your local college or through organizations like ACE or SCA.
And now before I wanted to sing Almost Heaven, Hensley Settlement, now I want to sing We Are Family. Get into it, guys. Come on, come on. So Gary, 2 questions of you. One of your most poignant, one of those wow moments here at Cumberland Gap, or as actually here at Hensley, that you just keep reliving in your mind, in your heart, that special moment. And then secondly, again, just looking at maintenance and what it really means here at Hensley Settlement.
Well, there's lots of moments. One that comes to mind is I like to come up here late in the evenings after work, because when you're up here working, it's hard to enjoy the quietness because we're always beating or banging or driving a tractor. We're always making noise. So getting to come up in the evenings, me and my wife come up. Sometimes the kids come with us, and it's just quiet and calm. And we were out at the apple tree one day trying to get apples out of the tree.
Yeah.
And as I was knocking them out and they were thumping on the ground, we looked up on the knoll right above us, and all you could see was deer heads lined up watching us as we were getting the apples. They were just wanting to make sure we left a few for them.
That's very cool.
But I've had a lot of moments. We've done some wood work on the woodshed and stuff, redone the roof, and it was about to fall. And I was going on vacation as the guys were working on it, and it was a proud moment to come back and see all the work they'd done.
Nice.
I mean, Alex here is an intern for 10 weeks, and it feels like he's been here forever. Like I said, I really hated to see him go because he has been a great help up here. And then that's what people don't realize up here. I'm the only full-time employee here. Alex was 10 weeks. Ron Eddy, he's a seasonal, so he's got maybe a month and he'll be leaving. And Steve Powers, he's a furlough employee, so he's got about a month and a half and he'll be leaving. Then it'll just be me
you.
up here. And it's hard to accomplish a lot by yourself, but it's always nice when the guys come back. You know, like I said, it's like family. They all just fall right back in the spot where they left at, and everything goes right back to the way it was.
And again, just talk about a highly talented cadre of park employees. I salute you all. I tip my hat off to all of you because, again, the work that you do ensures that this place remains the very, very special place that it has always been. So thank you, Gary. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome. I feel really good about, leaving and knowing that this place I'll come back and visit and it will always be the same.
It's in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, Martha, we are here in the cemetery, and I think this is the perfect place to really sum up what we've been doing. We've been talking about maintenance. We've been talking about our present day jobs. Mm-hmm. But when we really look at the final story, that final story is really the stories of the Hensleys, the Gibbons, the people who lived here.
That's right, Carol. There were a lot of people, not just up here, but people who lived in all parts of the park. That's now the park. And it's important we keep that in mind. And I think that's why Gary and me and Interv are so interested in getting it right. It really serves as a living memorial to the families who were here before the park. And the families come up and visit, and they come to the cemetery to visit their long lost relatives. And we keep up the cemetery as well. It's a matter of respect and remembering why we're here.
You know, and when you look at really why the National Park Service was created, it is to ensure that the history of America is never forgotten. You know, national parks really tell us who we are as a people and as a nation. And as a people and as a nation, we have to look at those very, very powerful individual stories. Hensley Settlement is the story of a people, of a very, very proud people, very, very proud individuals.
That's right. The people who lived here and the people who died here. I got all my sisters with me.
Are we done? I hope we're done.